Okay. Let me start. Okay, we are ready to start. Good morning, everyone. All of the APACMed and KNDIA members and other valuable participants here. Welcome to the APACMed webinar. The title is Korea Market Access Landscape for Surgical Robot. I'm Song-Hee from Yonsei University, Severance Hospital in South Korea. I'll be chairman for this valuable webinar. Today we have two presentations, and the speakers have been asked to limit their presentation to 20 minutes. Let me introduce the first presenter, Mr. Hogan Lee. Is a CMO and Executive Vice President, and the name of the topic is the surgical robot market in South Korea and introduction of a RevY. Please go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Okay, good morning. Hey, good morning. Can you hear me? Hello.
I can see your slide.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Then let me start. First of all, I really appreciate for giving me this excellent opportunity to introduce the MIRE company with the state-of-the-art laparoscopic surgical robot called RevY. Before I start, briefly introduce myself. I had built my career at the multinational healthcare company, mostly in commercial area sales and marketing. And now I'm leading the surgical robot division at MIRE company. This is the contents that I will be covering today. Number one, a brief introduction of MIRE company, and the number two, surgical robot market, and number three, our mission, and number four, product feature for RevY, and the number five, the last part, the RevY's future. If you have any just questions or comments, just feel free to stop me during the presentations. To begin with, I will start with the company history shortly, then talk about the future of surgical robots and RevY. The MIRE company was founded in 1984 to develop display edge grinding technology, which was occupied by a Japanese company globally. The late founder Jong-in Kim led the company business by succeeding the launch of the edge grinder technology. And now that is main driver of business with more than 70% market share around the world. The MIRE company is ranked at #1 in this area and continuing to introduce the cutting edge technology, not only display grinding technology, but also inspection equipment by pursuing whole round prayer year by year. We originally started our business and focused on the industrial equipment, but the founder of MIRE company wanted to find a new business as the next step to guarantee the sustainable growth with more values to help people's life. That's why Mire company started to develop a laparoscopy surgical robot from 2007 and invested a massive amount of money to get it done. We have three main business groups. The Levo is the first Korean surgical robot that is successfully developed and commercialized in the market. Next one is our sensor business. The CubeEye, called CubeEye, measure distance and recognize objects through sensor technology. And finally, we are manufacturing the industrial equipment called APACMed, and we are #1 company in the world in this area. Now I'm going to tell you why the surgical robot market is important and the reason why we are doing this business here in Korea. Before I talk about the surgical robot main bodies, let me just touch briefly the history of this surgery. Originally, the open surgery was performed by the surgeon's hand. This is because the intuitive way to cure human's body by seeing the organs with the eyes and retract or transect a specimen by hands. But for patients, open surgery was not the best treatment because of exposure of germs and continued bleeding with severe pains while performing the surgery. This is why laparoscopic surgery was developed to minimize the patient's skull size and pains. And we call it MIS, minimally invasive surgery. It seems well presented for the patients during the last 20 to 30 years, but not for the surgeon due to the hand trembling, retaining fatigue, and less intuitive vision management. Furthermore, surgeons are having a hard time to learn and get used to perform the surgery itself. That's why the robotic surgery came out to support surgeons' needs and patients' benefits. These are the surgical robots that has been launched in the market recently. When we talk about the surgical robot business, there are three different types of product group based on surgical field: the laparoscopic, and orthopedic, and neurosurgical. The laparoscopic surgical robot is where you perform the surgery under the abdominal wall. The Da Vinci, the #1 product in this area, the Levo, the Perseus, Senens, and Hugo systems are representative products in this field. Apart from that, a couple more products from China soon to be launched in the market. The orthopedic surgical robot is used for bones such as knees, called Mako, Navio, and Cubis joint are mostly used product in this area. The last one, the neurosurgical robot, takes very small portion in this market yet. Marjo and Monarch are the most selling product in the market. Let me deep dive to laparoscopic robot itself. The laparoscopic robot has designed to bring more efficiency. As I mentioned, the robotic arms translate the surgeon's hand movement the intuitive way. In addition, the system provides high quality of 3D vision system so that the operation goes into accurate and safe process compared to conventional laparoscopic surgery. What about the market development? In 2018, the size of the global medical device market reached $389 billion and it is expected to expand to $486 billion by 2022. The size of the Korean market ranks 9th in the world, showing 8% CAGR, but still the market size only accounts for 1.4% of the global medical device market. The major factors of fast-growing device market in Korea is that due to the early penetration into the aging society and high demands for well-being, and lastly, the change of healthcare policies by the government. Then let's look at numbers for the laparoscopic surgical robot, which is installed in the globally. The total 6,000 units of laparoscopic surgical robot are installed worldwide, but they're mostly in the US region, followed by the Europe and Asia market. I also want to highlight the growth rate in Asia region. Asia market covers only 15% out of total laparoscopic surgical robot market, but it seems like has the fastest growing trend led by Japan and Korea with more than 400 units and 100 units respectively. Both countries strongly contribute the development of laparoscopic surgical robot business in Asia region, but hopefully China will be a new strong player next couple more years. The laparoscopic surgical robot consists of three main business models. The consumable and maintenance are the main area to generate revenue rather than system selling, and it makes sustainable growth for a long period of time. Let me just explain, focusing on Korea market. There are total 108 units installed in Korea, mostly in tertiary hospitals, and next by the 36 volumes are in general hospital. But still we are looking for, there are big potential market in next level, which is semi-hospitals, middle-sized hospital. There are also strong needs for a surgical robot, laparoscopic surgical robot, but due to that the cost barrier, it's not easy to accept that the robot at present. So the more than 98% of the market share is within by one US giant company, which is Intuitive Surgical here in Korea. This is a chart showing the development of procedure since Da Vinci launched in Korea in since 2005. And now the accumulate procedure size more than 106,000. And also it has been growing at CAGR of 27% during last 5 years, which is so fast. Then what makes LSR, laparoscopic surgical robot market, growing so fast in Korea? Laparoscopic surgical robot system provides various benefits to hospital surgeons and patients-wise. Firstly, doctor's standpoint, it gives intuitive movement, reduces the hands trembling with a greater degree of freedom, and it serves more stable and accurate surgery. Secondly, hospital standpoint, laparoscopic surgical robot provides reduced human resource with a greater utilization of surgeons. Lastly, the laparoscopic surgical robot helps minimizing recovery time and small incision to reduce pain and blood loss to patients. But what is the biggest barriers to buy in such a great system? The cost. The cost is the biggest hurdle due to the monopolized business structure in the market. That's why media company started to jump in development of laparoscopic surgical robot to help surgeons and patients to give greater benefits by supporting reasonable price structure. So before sharing our missions, let me tell you about the product development history shortly. From 2007 to 2017, during last 10 years, we have developed a system for 11 years actually, and built several different type of prototypes and completed clinical trial to get the product registration by KFDA in 2017. The product was launched under the name of RevY in the following year and continued clinical trial to secure the efficacy and safety in Severance Hospital, which is recognized the biggest hospital in terms of number of cases with laparoscopic surgical robot in the world. Last May, the system was selected as 10th innovative medical device by the KFDA, and this is the first medical device in surgical robot area here in Korea. Another great news recently, RevY is installed at Korea National Cancer Center. It's well known as a cancer specialized hospital utilizing radiology for cancer diagnostics, treatment, and research in Korea. By launching RevY in Korea National Cancer Center, we are expecting the expansion of specialty with managing high level of surgery cases in uro and gynecology and ENT, etc. Today, we actually started the first case here in Korea National Cancer Center from the urology. During more than 11 years, company invested huge amount of money, R&D expense with more than 6 versions of prototypes supporting from more than 180 seasoned R&D staff. It was never easy journey to launch product in the market as a mid-sized company. The slide shows our great effort to reach to the destination. We developed a lot of prototypes. If I move on to the next slide, I would like to explain the structure of laparoscopic surgical robot business so that you understand company mission wise. Even laparoscopic surgical robot provide great benefit for both surgeon and patient. Still, the cost issue is the big barrier to approach it. The system price, maintenance fee, and the cost of disposables are key components of laparoscopic surgical robot. But the overall price is still too high to accept in. So we come up with an idea, let's make a better care for more patients with a reasonable price structure. Our core value is setting up as giving better cares for more patients by offering reliable product, reasonable price with reasonable, responsible people. Let's look at the capabilities of RevY. The system has 4 components, and the master console where the surgeon performs surgery. At the operation cart, this is where robotic arms and instruments translate movements and go into the patient body. The surgeon vision cart reflects the surgeon's view, so other medical staff can monitor the whole process of operation. The last one is to simulate. This helps you to practice procedure before surgeon actually operates surgery. You can improve your robotic surgery skill with this. Let me just jump into another slide to save time. This is our instrument. Okay, then we have another feature that we have already started our next generation robot development to bring clear vision and more instrument and also smoother control to give the other benefits to surgeon and patients. We are hoping to get that product within the couple of years. And we pursue open R&D. We are looking working closely together, not only with our partners, but also with the surgeon and staffs. We are open to share customers' voice. We will continue developing our system for better care for more patients and supporting better and respond faster. Okay, this was all my slide, but due to the time constraint, I just skipped a number of slides. But if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hogan Lee, for your excellent presentation, and congratulate the successful works on your Level I. Okay, let's move on to the next topics. Let me introduce the second presenters. The name is Sang-Hoon Lee, the head of R&D Center and director of CUREXO Incorporation in Korea, to talk about the bone surgical robot Cubis series and challenges in the Korean market. Go ahead, Dr. Sang-Hoon Lee.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. It's my pleasure to introduce our experience about the bone surgical robots. In my talk, I'll introduce Cubis robots for bone surgeries, and I shortly discuss issues about the surgical robot market in Korea. Next, please. First, as an introduction, I tell you who is CUREXO and the global market situation of bone surgical robots. Next, please. CUREXO is a medical robot company. We developed 3 medical robots, 2 surgical robots for bone surgery, for joint and spine, and rehabilitation robot for gait training. Every robot got the approval and clinically being used in many hospitals. Next, please. These are our R&D center and production site. 40% of employees of CUREXO work for R&D. And till now, we've produced more than 60 medical robots. Next, please. These diagrams show the market share of the global joint and spine in 2019 and the surgical robots of the market leaders. And you can see, as you can see, most of the top tier companies have their own surgical robots. Joint replacement surgical robot market is already wide open, and the competition is fierce now. And the spine surgical robot follows the similar path behind 2 to 3 years. Next, please. We've collected the robot supply articles posted on a news site last year until summer. Even when the COVID-19 pandemic reached its peak, news of the installation of surgical robots continued. So you can feel the needs or desire for the surgical robots in the market now. Next, please. I'll introduce you our 2 surgical robots for bone surgery, Cubis joint and Cubis spine. Next, please. The first one is Cubis joint, surgical robot for joint replacement surgery. Next, please. This is a movie clip our Indian user posted just a couple of weeks ago. It's quite fun and shows the essence of the surgical, the essence of the Cubis joint. Before surgery, the surgeon planned the surgery using CT image. You can evaluate the soft tissue and can change the plan intraoperatively. And it can cut the bone accurately by using the high-speed cutters. Next, please. TKA is a surgery of replacing the damaged knee joint to metallic artificial implants. This surgery recovers or aligns the mechanical axis straight from hip to knee and ankle. In manual surgery, sometimes axis cannot be aligned to straight. Then the lifetime of the implant becomes short. Next, please. You can classify the robots along the axis of bone cutting autonomy and flexibility in surgical planning. Cubis joint cuts the bone accurately and automatically. And you can change the surgical plan intraoperatively, considering soft tissue conditions of the patient. It has very unique position in the market. And we believe many of orthopedic surgeons support our value of accuracy and flexibility. Next, please. It cuts the bone, as I told you, it automatically cuts the bone and precisely cut the bone by milling, by using high-speed milling cutter. And it is quite safe because it cuts the bone just inside of the safe boundary, and it monitors the deviations also in real time. And it is convenient for the surgeon because it assists the jobs for exact component positioning. Next, please. And I can say it's flexible, as it can measure the soft tissue condition of the patient through the functionality of gap check in every step of the procedure. And the surgeon may change the plan intraoperatively according to the condition of the patient to make the surgery patient optimal. Next, please. This shows the workflow of Cubis joint. Firstly, to register the bone position, we gather the point of the surface of the bone. Next is the bone cutting with high-speed milling cutter. You can see the cutter always moves inside of the predetermined boundary. Finally, next. Finally, you can see the gap check for the final evaluation of the surgery. You can measure the gap before surgery or intra-op or post-op situations. Next, please. Cubis joint was firstly installed in Korea in 2020. About 20 robots are being used in Korea and India. And so far, more than 700 cases have been performed. Next, please. Next, yeah, okay. One page before, please. Yeah, okay. Next one is the Cubis spine, a surgical robot for spinal surgery. It is for the guidance of pedicle screws for spinal fusion surgery. Next, please. For the spine fusion surgery, you need to insert the pedicle screws inside the bone exactly. Exact positioning is a very important goal. Malpositioning may cause severe damage on the patient. So surgeons frequently use X-ray equipment, and it results in heavy radiation exposure. Next, please. This is a short introduction of workflow. You can plan the positions of screws using 2D X-ray image or 3D intraop CT image. Then the robot guides the screw position and monitors the position of the screw in real time. Okay, next please. There are also several spine surgical robots in the market, and we think Cubist Spine is a simple and flexible one. Next, please. Yeah, Cubist Spine has a very straightforward workflow of scan, plan, and navigation. You can do the surgery by using only C-arm, 2 shots of the 2D X-ray images, and it intuitively monitors the deviations such as skiving force and the bone movement. Next, please. Next, okay. And the Cubist Spine can be positioned flexibly on the floor, while some others have restrictions of robot positioning. And many imaging modalities can be used, such as O-arm, intraop CT, C-arm, and 3D C-arm. And Cubist Spine takes open platform policy. Any screws who have a contract with us can be used. And this policy is the same to Cubist joint. Next, please. This is the actual clinical application of Cubist Spine. The surgeon plans the surgery, then the robot moves to the guiding position. And under the guidance of the robot, the surgeon inserts the screw while monitors the position of the screw. Actually, the surgeon in this movie clip is the moderator, Professor Yi. And Cubist Spine is installed in Korea, 2 hospitals in Korea, and 2 in USA and 1 in Australia. And from today, we do the first cases in America. Okay, next, please. As a final topic, I shortly discussed the situation for the new medical technology in Korea. As you may imagine, the Korea has basis for the medical technology industry. It has world-class clinical practice, and Korea's industrial technologies are very famous. Combining the two advantages may lead a great global medtech industry. And also, Korea is the 10th largest medical device market in the world. So Korea has high potential for the new industry of medtech. Next, please. Whereas there are 2 hurdles for new technology to access the market. Firstly, you should get the approval as a medical device. Secondly, you have to pass the new tech assessment as a medical treatment. In many cases, it seems highly difficult to get proper payment, especially for the Korean-born companies having little clinical evidences. Next, please. For the Korean companies, situation seems challenging. Korea is the world 10th market, but it is less than just 2% of global market, very small. and you need to secure the track records in this small and conservative market situation. And the government tried to solve this situation through making some policies of fast track or nHTA suspension, delaying the new technology assessment for fast access into the market. But they also want to maintain the stability of expenditure. Anyhow, the surgical robot market grows so fast, and we, Korean surgical robot companies, should seize the opportunities. Next, please. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for a nice presentation. And then we already hear of the two topics, and then we have plenty of time for discussion and the Q&A. Let's move on to the panel discussion and Q&A from now on. During the panel discussion, if you any participant of this webinar, if you have any question in any time, please write on the chatting window, and then I can catch the question and I can ask the question to the appropriate presenters. Okay. Let's start my question. I have a question to the Mr. Hogan Lee. Can you explain the stance of the Korean nHTA program about surgical robot?
Yes, as I explained in my earlier slide, the laparoscopic surgical robot, provide the great benefits for both doctors, the surgeon, and patients. But still the reimbursement policy is not setting up, as this is relatively new area, and there is no other the comparison data except the Da Vinci, which is leading the market at present. But just in case of Japan, there are more than 400 units are installed, which is double sized than China. Just think about that, the number of population, really great installation in Japan. The reason is that since 2012, the Japanese government started the implementation of reimbursement policy for laparoscopic surgical robot focused on the Euro specialty. That's why there are big explosion of surgical robot cases, and it links to the installation of the robot itself. So now this is too early stage, but as I know, there are some emerging issues, and also voices up by the medical association recently to touch that the reimbursement plan, because this is the really expensive area to pay for that cost. So maybe it's not the right time, but hopefully, as we have reimbursement policy for conventional laparoscopic surgery or open surgery, I really I strongly believe that the government will set up that the national health insurance policy for that the laparoscopic surgical robot area, but not now. Yeah.
Thank you for answers. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce our excellent panelist. I'd like to introduce Mr. Van Lee, our marketing manager from Medtronic Korea in South Korea, and Mrs. Roberta Sarno, manager of digital health division of APACMed. Please welcome. Late welcome. I'm sorry. Please go ahead the panel discussion. If you have any question or discussion point, please feel free to ask with each other. I saw in the chatting window the question to the Hogan Lee again by the Dr. Roberta. Do you have any strategy to overcome the cost problem, if not confidential?
This is really, kind of confidential questions and answers, but we actually, focused to reduce that price. As I just presented in my slide, currently the product laparoscopic surgical robot is within by only one giant US company, and that's why the market is dominated and monopolized. So the cost is the really matter to accept to buy in such a great benefit. That's why we focused on reducing the price. So mostly we are trying to produce most of our parts is in a mold production way, okay, to reduce the production cost, not a kind of a single production, so mold production way. And the second is most of part, including major motor and operation part, is we do not ask kind of third-party manufacturing. We made it our the facilities. So those two parts, the mold production and made in-house, is our key strategy to overcome the price, the cost itself.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay.
I have another question to the Dr. Sang-Hoon Lee. What do you think of the characteristics of Korean market for innovative medical technologies?
Thank you for the question. As I told you in my slide, Korea has good soil for the market, advanced medical technologies. Korea is the third largest medical device market in Asia, 10th in the world. It has very high clinical technology and has a number of world-class hospitals. And Korea has high level of industrial technologies. And the government actively supports the development of the cutting-edge medical devices to foster the new industry. But on the other hand, it is difficult to access Korean market with new technologies, especially for the Korean-born companies, which has less clinical evidences. It is because the insurance, national insurance, prohibit treatments other than those registered in national insurance, whether the treatment is paid by the insurance or not. And they are also conservative to new technologies. And the government and health insurance understand this situation. And they are trying to make improvements such as the fast track policy, but it is not as fast as expected, especially for the companies just like ours. Thank you.
Thank you for the answers. And I can see the question in the chatting by Melvin Lim. All of you can see the question of the Melvin Lim. There are a lot of coming surgical robot players like Revo and Cubis. And what will be the market landscape look like when in 5 to 10 years, which will be the determining factors for that? Is there anybody to answer for this question?
Okay, let me give my thoughts. Basically, surgical robot market will be booming next 5 to 10 years because there are a lot of benefits to for both surgeon and patients. Definitely, no doubt it. Focus on the laparoscopic surgical robot. There will be another major player will jump into the market, such as Medtronic, Johnson & Johnson, and China and from Japan. And there are also growing needs of the laparoscopic surgical robot by the middle-sized hospital. Present, the most of tertiary hospital, they are using the surgical robot, but after 5 to 10 years, then the more and more middle-sized hospital, they are buying such a surgical robot, not only for laparoscopic, but also orthopedic. Then the market will be expanded a lot. And the last part is to determine the market acceptance. Then the product should be user-friendly, okay? Meaning that the product should be intuitive, the product should be accurate, and also product should be safe for both doctor side and patient side. And lastly, if the government's role, if government's setting up the establish new policy towards that the surgical robot, then the cost will be not a big barrier to accepting. So I firmly believe that the surgical robot market will be expanded in the next 5 to 10 years here in Korea.
Thank you for your answers.
And from my point of view, it's already so many surgical robots in the world, not only the Da Vinci, the Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, and many other companies already made their own robots and orthopedic or other areas. So this, you can say this is the era of the surgical robots. And finally, I think we should focus on the value the robot or the medical service can provide to the patient or the hospital or the insurance company also. Yeah. So what is the right value the robot or the service can provide is the key point, I think. And another one is the nowadays, not just on the treatment itself, for example, surgery or intervention, they are trying to expand the span of their service from before surgery, intra-surgery, and after surgery. So the total coverage of the treatment is so important issue after the 5 to 10 years of the this high technology, health technology market, I think.
Thank you. Can I have a brief question to the Ben Lee, Mr. Ben Lee? And what do you think? What is the comparative advantage which Korean robotic technologies have as compared to those from the multinational companies?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Songy. I think actually, as of like the the speaker actually described earlier during the presentation. Especially spine field, especially in Korea, the robotic technology is not really prevailed yet. I mean, it's very early stage. And then, like what we are really focused on in spine field is actually, it's not about like pedicle screw fixation. It's more about like planning for although the spinal deformity, which is really prevailed these days in Korea right now. So that's something Medtronic really focused at this point, actually, for robotic technology, because like it's really hard to differentiate. I mean, the robotic technology from navigation technology we have. So we kind of like a more focus on robotic technology with a planning standpoint. But I think like Korean robotic technology actually the comparative advantage, I would say, to the multinational company like Medtronic is actually really quick to move, because like they're the one actually already launched robotic technology in Korea, unlike actually us. And then a lot of like Korean surgeon has a very innovative idea, and then like Isangwon here, actually, they trying to like embrace all those like new innovative ideas and then reflect it to their technology very directly. So that is the something the multinational company don't have. Actually, we have like too many process, too many steps to take an action. So I think that's the major advantage, I would say, if I may, that's the advantage actually the local company has compared to a multinational company, I think.
Thank you for your answers. Let me ask a question to Dr. Roberta Sarno. Okay, what are APACMed's view on Korea's health technology landscape? And second thing is, how can APACMed and other trade associations support Korean surgical robot industry?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the question. Let me thank all the panelists, because I think they were excellent presentation and I learned a lot. Look, in APACMed, we look at Korea very, very closely for all the reasons that have been mentioned today, right? Innovative market for healthcare. And also, you know, when we look at the policy efforts, clearly we see that there is an opening, especially now in the past years during COVID and so on. So let me bring an example. When we last year we look at the policy strategies for health technology assessment specific to digital health. We observed that Korea was the only APAC market to have an nHTA framework dedicated to digital health, right? So it's really, really important, and we take it as a good example in our region. Also, we can see some level of reimbursement for some procedures, surgical procedures, especially in the orthopedic and cardiovascular therapeutic areas. So these are all good signs. That being said, I think it's really important to mention that currently one of the others, and it has been mentioned already in the presentations, one of the big hurdles is the lack of a fit for purpose value assessment, funding and reimbursement framework for digital health solutions, including robotics, of course. So we know that that's a general situation in Asia, and I will say beyond as well. There are very few markets who are leading in this space. So policy efforts need to really speed up in order to bring more life-saving solutions to patients. So then going back to the question, what are we doing, or what's the value we provide as a trade association? So we introduced the Digital Health Committee a couple of years ago at APACMed. So we are, our job is to provide basically a neutral platform for all the manufacturers to share best practices. I think there was a question in the chat if there were examples of strategies adopted by some of the manufacturers. And we did a landscape analysis last year on the strategies adopted for market access, for example. But also we are very active in the policy shaping, in all the policy shaping initiatives. So we have been very active this year in everything that is related to implementing a reimbursement framework for digital health. We have published a position paper that comes from an effort from all the manufacturers from the region. It's not Korea specific because our job is to harmonize, but definitely through our Korean working group in 2022, we want to engage more with policymakers to help them to implement a framework that can really support innovation. Thanks, Dr. Song-Yi.
Thank you. Thank you for your nice presentation and your insight of the Korea's health technology landscape. Okay, due to the time limit, we'll move on to the last closing process from now on. Glenda, can you share the slide, please?
Yes. Let me share it now.
Yes, please. Before closing remark, I'd like to show one slide. When I and the CUREXO started to develop spine robot, many doctors and medical personnel has been skeptical of the robotic surgery because of the cost effectiveness. As you know, when Thomas Edison invented the electric surgery in the 80s, he told the people worrying about cost, I will make electricity so cheap that only the rich will burn candle. I think we should prepare the future medicine and future surgical robot era, as all of you. That is my the opinion of current technology in the, especially Korean robotic companies, and I'd like to encourage all of the Korean robotic companies as this slide. Okay, let me introduce the Glenda, and we'll talk about the information of APACMed. Please
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Song-Yi. We are really appreciative of all the time that our panelists have contributed to this meaningful discussion. So we would like to appreciate Dr. Bo-Kun Lee, Dr. Sang-Hoon Lee, Mr. Van Lee, Dr. Roberta Sarno, and most importantly, our distinguished moderator, Professor Seong-Yi, on this topic. If I could just introduce the APACMed Digital Health Committee and the APACMed Government Affairs and Market Access Committee. We are led by Dr. Roberta Sato here, who is the manager. Her committee comprises of 200 members from 70 companies, including MNCs, SMEs, and startups. The two objectives are to create and share knowledge about digital health technologies like the one that we heard today, and to advocate for regional policies. On the other hand, I lead the Government Affairs and Reimbursement Committee. So we comprise of corporate members from 40 companies with country center of excellence based in the local markets in Indonesia, India, Vietnam, and in the coming year, China and South Korea. And our objective is to build credible collaboration with government stakeholders, contribute to value-based healthcare, and execute responses to live policy challenges. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, and have a good afternoon ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
교수님
Thank you very
수고하셨습니다.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
감사합니다, 교수님, 박사님.
네, 수고 많으셨습니다.
수고하셨습니다. 감사합니다.